There's a decision that's sitting in front of you right now. Maybe it's been there for a week. Maybe it's been there for months. And instead of making that decision, you keep researching, you keep analyzing, you keep thinking through it. You keep giving yourself reasons why you shouldn't take action and make that decision. And you see, you're telling yourself that you're actually being thorough, that you shouldn't rush it, that you should take your time and make sure that you're making the right choice, that you'll make the move and make the decision when you have everything 100% knowledge. And somewhere underneath all of that, you already figured out internally, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, that you're actually just stalling. And here's what no one has told you about why you're still in that loop. You see, because the problem isn't that you're just thinking too much. The problem is that your thinking has nowhere to land. Because overthinking is not a thinking problem. It's a structural one. Because you see, your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's searching for a resolution. And when you don't give it a structure that creates that resolution, it cannot stop. You see, your overthinking has everything to do with the absence of one specific thing that every loop is waiting for. And this is not a mindset shift. This is not a breathing exercise. This is an architectural fix. And once you see the architecture, that loop has nowhere else to hide. Now, I want to visualize this for you. So let me draw a circle here. So within this circle, typically what happens is here in the middle or so, it just continues, okay? Constant loop. This is how it looks like with every single situation that you've had where you're overthinking. It just continues, right? Continuous. Because what's happening here is that you're overthinking and there's no exit point. You see, your brain enters here looking for a resolution, and then it goes and then it overthinks again. And it's just this loop that unless you're aware of what's happening and you're giving it structure, is just going to continue to just loop and loop around. And so because there's no structure here in terms of the thinking itself, it's always going to lead to more analysis, more information, more research, more articles, more content, more reasons to not take action because there's absolutely no structure to your thinking. And so you continue to overthink and you convince yourself as to why you shouldn't do what you need to do. And you see, your brain is doing everything that it's supposed to do. It's thinking, it's finding other reasons, it's trying to find a resolution. But what you're not giving your thinking is structure, it's architecture. It's the ability to come in one area and be able to exit out the other, and to follow a certain process so that you start your thinking and then you go through steps and then you exit out and you find a resolution. But with this, you just keep overthinking, and finding reasons why you shouldn't make a decision or take a specific action. And so the solution here is not to think less. It's to give your thinking a place to stop and exit. And I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, creators, founders, and this is one of the loops that I notice continually popping up, where they are able to even acknowledge that they're overthinking and that they keep finding reasons as to why they should or shouldn't take a specific action. And these are guys that, have big picture strategy, have micro strategy, can really deep dive into different areas and have a lot of expertise and very strategic thinkers. And so I've noticed that this pattern continues to show up because they haven't given their thinking any type of architecture or structure, so that when they're thinking something through, they know they need to go through and take step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And by step 4 or 5, this is going to be my exit point here. And here's my resolution. And I'm going to take this action, even if I'm not 100%, but I've gone through this process. And so what most people are missing is just structure. Think about this, like this, down, over here. Okay, like a little maze, and then here's the exit point. Exit, start. If you don't have something like this, that's structural, that's architectural, that you know that you can take X number of steps and go X routes. And then here you have a resolution. Then you're going to be stuck continually always trying to find reasons why you shouldn't take action. And what I've found is that most people that are super smart, that are strategic thinkers, that understand how to make decisions, oftentimes will go through this and they'll feel like they don't have permission to go through something structural and take X, Y, Z steps and then find a resolution, even though if they don't have 100% clarity. Okay. You think about entrepreneurs, creators, founders, high achievers as a whole, people that are wanting to become better versions of themselves. They're always taking action for the most part, right? Because they're able to get to a certain level. However, what happens is it's brute force in terms of right here. Let's say somebody comes through and they're like brute force it into this gap here and then they make a decision. So it's very taxing emotionally, instinctually, mentally, right? All of that, because they're lacking this infrastructure here where they know I have a situation, a decision to make, an action to take, and I need to make a decision in terms of whether I'm going to take that or whether I'm not going to take that action, okay? And this allows for less tension, less ease, less difficulty, less internal resources that are needed to come to an actual decision and to stop overthinking. So here's what we're covering today. First thing we're going to cover is why overthinking is a structural problem. We're going to dive deep into this because this distinction here is what matters the most and what's really important here, because this is not a discipline problem. This is not a personality thing. This has to do with your brain not having structure to follow, right? Think about your life. Think about something that you do on a regular basis where you know that you need to do something at X time every single day. You have structure. Think about your business, right? Where you do X, Y, and Z service or provide X, Y, Z service and you get compensated by delivering X results or X delivery. There's structure around that. You know A and B is going to get you C and D. There's structure. But your mind, your brain, if it doesn't have that structure in terms of making decisions and thinking and overthinking, then you're just going to continue to loop. And that's why overthinking is a structural problem. And we're going to go deeper into this. The second thing we're going to go over is the architecture of the loop, plus why most advice doesn't work. So we're going to go over the loop that has 5 components that keeps you in that loop of overthinking. And the one missing piece that allows you to stop the overthinking once and for all. And why meditation, journaling, visualizations, or affirmations, or just different things that all tackle the surface layer don't work, because they're not attacking the root here, which is the structure aspect of it. And then number 3, we're going to go over the decide system. This is a 6-step system framework that gives every decision a clear exit point and gives your brain the structural signal that it's been waiting for. Okay, so let's look at why the brain loops. So here's the loop, the pattern. So when you have no structure, then it goes into your emotion, because your emotions are oftentimes the first step in terms of your internal decision-making process, right? It goes through your emotions. So you have no structure, and then goes into your emotion, and then you go into overthinking. And then you delay because you continue to overthink, and then there's no endpoint because you're just continually running the circle here, okay? And it's all driven typically by your emotions in terms of you feeling a certain way that you don't have clarity on how to make the decision. And so your emotions are the ones that are really running everything here, because you see, your brain is doing exactly everything that it's supposed to do. It's finding certainty. It's avoiding mistakes. It's finding resolutions. The problem is that without a decision structure, it has no way of knowing that it has actually found enough to actually make a decision. You see, because overthinking is not too many thoughts. Because this is what most people think overthinking is, where you have thousands of thoughts going on simultaneously, or just throughout the day or throughout the week, whatever it may be. This is not overthinking. Overthinking equals no decision structure or system. You have no process up here where you have a starting point and you have an exit. Okay, maybe here you have point A, point B, and point C, which means that after you do these three things here, you are inevitably going to take X action or make X decision, because you have the process already laid out, the system outlined for your brain to know, okay, we've done our initial research, we've done A, B, and C. Now it's time to make a decision. Because your brain, in terms of it overthinking, it's going to continue to do that if it doesn't have somewhere to go in terms of exit, like up here, to find that resolution. Because it doesn't know how to decide. It doesn't know what it looks like in terms of a decision. Think about your life. How are you able to reach a certain reality, a certain version of you, if you don't know what that looks like? Like if you just went about your life and you're like, someday I'm going to have X amount of money, or I'm going to have X amount of success someday, hopefully, or someday it's going to happen, you know, and you don't plan it, you don't visualize it, you don't structure it in terms of, I'm going to be and do X, Y, Z by X time, right? You don't go throughout your life doing that in terms of whatever happens, happens. It's no. You structure your life and you lay it out in terms of, you know that you want to do A, B, and C. And when you do A, B, and C, you're going to get X result, X outcome. And so the same thing for your mind, for your brain. You need structure. You need the ability to understand that when you're thinking, you're going to take 1, 2, 3 steps, or however many steps you want to lay it out. And then from there, you're going to make a decision. You see, what most people try is they try to meditate. They try journaling. They try to stop overthinking. But all of these here are targeting the wrong layer. Because think about meditation. You're calming yourself. You're calming the nervous system. And you're slowing down. So the overthinking, really, all you're doing to it is you're kind of slowing it down, but you're not stopping it. When you journal and you write it down and you understand what you're doing, you're becoming more aware, but you're not stopping it. And when you stop overthinking, then it starts happening even more. Think about when you're like, hey, don't think about a pink elephant. And the first thing that pops in your mind is a pink elephant. Same thing here. This is all requiring you, for the most part, to use your internal resources, okay? And it's very taxing, and oftentimes you're just going to keep going and going and going, right? And so the missing piece here is structure and having it within a box to work within. Think about this. You have this box here that you operate, and you are operating only within this box, and you don't go outside of it, okay? This is the whole structure thing. You have the outer layer, then you have the internal layer of the structure itself. And you know, within this box, this frame, you're taking X steps, and you know that you're going to do A, B, and C, and you're going to get your desired outcome. Just think about nature. Think about how you plant a seed and you have to wait for it to like actually spend the time and the growth through the seasons, right? Where you need to water it. You need to wait for it to grow, to expand. Think about a tree. Hundreds of years it goes through in terms of getting to its full capacity, full potential. But it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen just by like chance. It's very structured. It's a process that we go through to do all of that in terms of creating it, in terms of building that. But if you think that you're just going to try to stop overthinking and try to use these different layers here that are at the top, surface layers, then you're not going to be able to stop overthinking. It's going to continue to compound. So the brain loops, let's put this here, brain loops when decisions have no structure. And the fix for this is being able to provide that structure for yourself and for your brain to know what you need to do to be able to come to a conclusion, to make a decision, to get you ultimately your desired result, desired reality, and outcome. And so ultimately, you don't stop, you don't eliminate overthinking, okay? You don't stop this, you don't eliminate this, because your brain is naturally going to find so many different reasons as to why you should or shouldn't do something, okay? It's going to use past experiences. It's going to use your current experience, your current reality, all these different reasons and processes that it goes through. But ultimately, you don't eliminate overthinking. You replace it with structure. That's the power here. Everything is solved in terms of the overthinking with structure, so it has somewhere to start and somewhere to exit. Okay, so let's walk through the decide, the anti-overthinking system. So let me go ahead and erase the board here. Okay, so the decide, anti-overthinking system. So this is a system here that's going to help you get structured in terms of you thinking through a decision and a very structured process in terms of ABC, 1, 2, 3. And then boom, we're ready to make a decision. So you don't have to keep overthinking. So first one here, D, define the decision. You want to ask yourself, what am I actually deciding here? You see, most overthinking loops don't start with the decision. They start with the vague situation. A lot of times it's like, should I make this call? Or should I make this decision or take this action? Or something around, hey, am I making this right call? And what if it doesn't work? Or what if that happens? Or what if this happens over here? Or what if Joe or Smith or John, or whatever it may be, right? All these different scenarios that play into the overthinking. And you see, that's not a decision. That is a concern. And your brain cannot resolve a concern, only a decision. So the first move here is precision. What am I actually deciding specifically, and by what date? So that's the key here in the first step, is getting crystal clear and specific on what is the actual decision that you are going to be taking, okay? Next step, E, eliminate excess options. You want 3 options max. You see, because what happens here is that most people are going to be thinking that, hey, more options that I have, the more clarity I'm going to have. And the thing is, unfortunately, that's not the case, because what they actually do is create anxiety and they create more noise. So what you want to do here is you want to reduce your options to 3 max every time, okay? Remember how I said and how I laid out the design up here with A, B, and C. You want A, B, or C choices. That's it. break it down to this, okay? Maybe it's I'm going to take action here, I'm not going to take action, and I'm going to maybe do a hybrid here where I take action however or but with, okay? That's how you want to do it. You want to have 3 options max, because what ends up happening is when we're overthinking, it's about all the different other things that could happen potentially, maybe, probably, or what if this, what if that. And so all of those are concerns. Remember, those are not actual decisions. And so we can eliminate all of those concerns and just actually go with 3 decisions, options, that helps us get clarity, and it keeps us siloed in each particular area. It's either A, B, or C. That's it. Don't worry about the concerns of this and that. That has nothing to do with the decision here, okay? Step number 3, choose criteria. So here, you want to outline what matters most, and only that, okay? You want to look at what matters most here and only focus on that criteria. And this is a step that most people skip entirely, because what people are doing is they're trying to evaluate options without first deciding what they're optimizing for. And without that, every option looks right and wrong from a different lens, from a different perspective. So you can't decide without knowing what you're actually optimizing for, okay? Remember that, it's very important. You need to get clarity on that. You need to look at what criteria point is important to you. Is it speed, growth, risk tolerance, values, right? Whatever that may be, you need to outline that criteria and look at what you are optimizing for so you have that clarity. Step number 4, you want to identify the best option. So here's where you want to ask, what option meets criteria right now? You see, after defining, eliminating, and establishing criteria, then this step is essentially almost automatic. And it's not because the decision has become easier now. It's because now you've given structure to that decision, and that structure is doing the work for you instead of you being stuck in that loop. Because the brain is always searching for the best option every single time. It just couldn't find it because it didn't have any criteria to go off of. Because remember, here in the criteria, it's about what's important to you, right? If speed is important to you, if you need to make a fast decision, if it's value, something that's important to you in terms of your morals, is it, risk tolerance, money, whatever that may be. Once you have that outlined and laid out, your brain knows what to look for. And so with this in place, now your brain has an exit point to be able to find a resolution. Step number 5, you want to decide quickly, because fast decisions are not reckless. Slow ones are expensive. And so this 5th step here is a rule, not a feeling. Because once you have the structure, you're able to decide within a fixed time frame or fixed window, and not when it feels right, because that's when most people are likely looking to take action. Or when I feel like it, or when the timing feels right. It's never the right time, and it's always the right time simultaneously. But I would say, from my perspective, in terms of like having the glass half full or half empty, for me, it's always the right time. And that's, I think, better served for you and for most people, because oftentimes we're always waiting for that feeling. But in this structure, in this system, in the way that you should be able to take on in terms of a new structure for your thinking, you should always look to find the reasonings and the rule behind why you should take action right now versus waiting to feel like you need to take action or to feel right. And the final step is to execute immediately. Because action closes the loop. And this final step is the one that most people delay after they've made a decision. You see, what happens here is that they finally decide, but then they wait, and then they pause before actually moving. And in that pause, the loop starts to restart. Because think about it, you've gone through the whole process, you've gone through the structure, you've reached the exit point, and then if you don't move forward immediately, then you're going to find reasons why you shouldn't take action. What if this? What if that? What if all these other things, right? So your loop is going to continue to run. You're going to get placed back in that hamster wheel, so to speak, where you're just in that loop all over again. Because when you take action right away, okay, it's a signal to your brain that, hey, you know what? This whole process is done. We're good. Like, this is a done deal here. We have reached this exit point and we're good. You know, decision's already made. There's no longer anything here to do around this decision, right? We've already figured it out. So let's quickly recap here. So the first step in this anti-overthinking system is we want to define the decision. What is it that we're actually deciding here, okay? What does that look like? What's the context here? Eliminate excess options. Let's narrow this down to 3 options because any more than that creates noise, okay? Choose criteria. What's important to you here? What matters? Speed, values, morals, whatever that may be. Identify the best option, okay? Select what's important to you and then decide quickly in terms of what you're going to do and then take action and execute immediately. And so with this system, this gives you structure. It gives you an endpoint, an exit, like up here. So then you have no loop any longer. You're no longer in this constant loop here, okay? This is out of here because you have an exit point, okay? Now, I want you to go back and think through right now decisions that you are currently wrestling with, that are on your desk, that you haven't pulled the trigger on, and run them through this system. And as you run them through this system, you'll realize that those decisions have actual endpoints in terms of actions for you to take that you didn't realize were there the whole time. Because what you're doing is you're running these decisions through a system of structure. And just think about how much mental energy you've spent on those decisions that have just been sitting there on your desk waiting for an action, a resolution, because ultimately that's the real cost of overthinking. Your mental energy, your mental bandwidth that is depleted having to worry and overthink through decisions that could just easily run and go through a structure so you can find the endpoint and the action and the resolution to ultimately take. Because you see, the difference between overthinkers and decisive operators is not intelligence. It's not confidence. It's not certainty about the future. It all comes down to structure. Because you don't need to think less and you don't need more time. You need a way to decide. And once you have it, the overthinking stops.